Welcome to Tech Intersect. I'm your host, Tanya Evans, and my life and work exist at the heart of law, business, and technology. Yeah, I've earned a few fancy titles and degrees over the years, but the bottom line is I'm a writer, speaker, teacher, and lifelong learner, and I'm really excited that you've joined me on this journey. So what is Tech Intersect? Well, it's authentic, empowering conversations with really interesting guests who demystify complex topics to prepare you for the future, because your future is now. And it exists where law, business, and tech intersect. Get ready to listen, learn, and leverage. Let's get started. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the 97th episode of Tech Intersect and a new year. And today, January 4th, 2022, I welcome Iris Nevins to the show. Iris is a co-founder and CEO of Umba Daima, a creative NFT studio that curates and builds community. The company is most well known for Black NFT Art, which is a brand that is building community around Black artists and collectors in the NFT space. Now, Iris sees NFTs as a revolutionary tool for empowering under-resourced communities in order to generate wealth through ownership of IP and assets. And if you are a faithful listener of this podcast, you know that my focus and my expertise aligns precisely with that mission and that vision. Iris is a former teacher and community activist who became a software engineer at 25, and just 3 years later, she became a software engineer manager. And she recently left her management role at Vox Media to become a full-time CEO and founder. I asked her to come on the show to talk about how she elevated to become one of the most significant trailblazers and visionaries in the NFT space, and about some of the iconic moments for BIPOC artists in 2021 in the NFT world, and the controversy around fine art versus contemporary and generative art, and the strategies and blueprint to successfully onboard in the wild, wonderful world of creative and collectible NFTs. So I know you'll enjoy this conversation as much as I enjoyed having it. Now, before we hop into the ep, please take a moment to follow this podcast and like, share, and comment so that others who would benefit from this content can find it. Okay, it's time to listen, learn, and leverage. Let's get started. In this episode of Tech Intersect, I welcome one of my dearest new friends. I don't even do new friends, but I accepted this new friend because I think she's so amazing, Iris Nevins, to the show. Iris is the co-founder and CEO of Umba Daima, a creative NFT studio that creates NFTs, curates, and builds community. And it's most well known for Black NFT Art, a brand that is building community around Black artists and collectors in the NFT space. I have the great fortune of serving as an advisor to the collective as well. And Advantage Evans Academy was a co-sponsor of Umba Daima's 2021 Crossroads exhibit of the Unseen Gallery, which was a month-long virtual NFT exhibit in the metaverse back in 2021, featuring Black and African artists in film and music and digital art. And also, Iris is well known in those Twitter streets. She's also my Twitter bestie. She doesn't know it, but now she does. We will talk about all of that and more in a moment. But first, Iris, welcome.
Thank you, Tanya. Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here. I'm honored that you would call me your friend.
Yes, absolutely. And you know, I don't throw that around lightly, but
I
I adore you. I adore you. So I'm really hyped to have this conversation and to have it be my first episode for 2022. I had to look at my notes to see what year it was because I'm very confused. It's been long 10 years. I'm not quite sure. But before we even jump in, how are you? How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I am really, really, really optimistic about 2022. So I'm coming into the new year with a lot of hope, big visions, big dreams, and just ready to work and execute.
Let's go. Well, I love that. We both have that same Hustle spirit, hustle and flow. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting to the flow part. Been hustling for a minute, but that's what it takes to build something that is important and lasts for sure. And I know that there's a lot in your background that leads you to this moment in time, and the reason that you bring the energy and the spirit and the focus that you do on the work that you do. But tell the great listeners about your background, expertise, what led you to the art world generally,
Mm-hmm.
and certainly the opportunities in Web3 for Black artists in particular.
Yeah. So, my story is like very extensive in that there's just a lot of different moments in my life that have led to where I am now. So I'm just going to run through all of it really quickly. So when I was a kid, I went to this international program in high school. It was a 2-year international program with kids from all over the world. And when I was there, I started going through an identity crisis that I think a lot of Black people go through at some point in their lives, especially Black Americans. And it was very heavily triggered by my having classmates that were African, like from the continent, that had come to this program. And many of them still wore wigs and weaves. And I remember thinking to myself, whoa, I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting them to be like hiding their natural hair the way that I've been hiding my natural hair. So I just started to like kind of unravel all of these insecurities that I had about Blackness. And then when I got to college, I became an Africana Studies major. So I looked into like history, literature, politics, film, a lot of different interdisciplinary topics around kind of the history of Black people and people of African descent in the world. And so I would say I have just since I was 16 years old, I've just been heavily driven by a desire to see Black people be free and to see us have the same levels of equality, the same levels of opportunity and freedom and access that a lot of other communities have. And then the way in which I got into art and NFTs in particular is because when I graduated from college, I went straight into activism work. I joined a group called the Dream Defenders in South Florida that was born out of the murder of Trayvon Martin. And so we were doing a lot of like protesting and community organizing work. And I was teaching at that time as well. And I realized that technology was this really powerful tool that a lot of activists didn't really understand or didn't really know how to use to our benefit and to further our movement. So I said, okay, I'm going to go join a boot camp program. I'm going to learn how to code. I'm going to become an engineer, and I'm going to figure out how to build tech to, revolutions and and help fight for equality and equity and justice. And so I did that. I became an engineer. Eventually, I became an engineering manager as well. And I'm just like learning. And I also have been very inspired by art because my mother, who works in academia, she's an art collector. And so she has beautiful artwork all over the walls of our home, my childhood home. And a lot of this art she collects from different countries that she travels to. So I had originally launched Umba Daima as an e-commerce store that was aiming to help Black artists sell their work online. And in particular, artists in the Caribbean and Africa. That's where we kind of started because that's where we saw the most need. And then immediately after we launched the e-commerce store, we started learning about NFTs from some friends of mine from college, Kai Sheffield, who's currently at Visa, and Eric Han, who's the co-founder of Crypto for Black Economic Empowerment, which is how you and I met.
Yes.
And so, so they launched that group and they started sharing a lot of info about crypto art and sharing it with me directly. Eric Han specifically was like, Iris, I know you launched this e-commerce store, but you should look into NFTs because it sounds kind of cool. I don't really get it, but it sounds like something you would like. So I started looking into it, and almost immediately I was like, okay, this is it. This is perfect because this is like art. This allows for art plus tech plus equity and empowerment all together. And so we pivoted the business, and we've been just really flourishing and growing ever since.
it's an important moment for you to share the evolution and the arc of how you got to this moment in time, because for so many of us, dare I say all of us in the space, unless you literally started yesterday, there was no intentionality. There was uncovering the possibilities that led to, you taking a deep dive because of your expertise and intellectual curiosity about certain facets, right? And also, it's very accelerated. None of us none of us could have spent a decade doing this because, the proliferation of non-fungible tokens really started to take focus, I think, in 2017. Ethereum, the first blockchain that to host this type of technology, didn't even come into existence until 2014, 2015 anyway. And so all of this is so new, but I feel like, particularly in the last 2 years because of the pandemic, the focus has been accelerated because there was finally like a real focus on the possibilities while we were all kind of locked away for the most part. Do you feel like the accelerated nature of everything that you've done? Because when you think about when you started focusing on NFTs, it wasn't a long time ago, but you are absolutely an expert. You didn't even start out to be, but you're always, and it happens to me too. We tend to know more than most in the room just because we spend hours every day doing this. What do you think about how quickly this has happened to your business and to your business focus?
Yeah, it's really cool. It's pretty crazy. People like family and friends, they oftentimes are just shocked at how much every time they get an update from me, it's like the updates are just so major and they're just like, whoa, it's been a month and you've done this, you've done what, you've worked with who, you've worked with what brand? Like, they're just like, how is this happening so fast in such a short period of time? And I think that there's a lot of factors that come into play, the pandemic being one of them. I also think there's just a really interesting convergence of like people realizing that the systems that we have been living with just are not really working in a lot of ways, and they're not working for a lot of people. And I think the pandemic was a really great opportunity for people to really understand that. And so, it just makes sense that this technology that gives people ownership and power and freedom and access would kind of emerge during this pandemic.
Well, tell us about NFT-Black art in particular. The focus on empowering artists to onboard in the space is critically important. It's one thing to say, this is great, it's transformative, it disintermediates art, let's go, reparations, all of it. But if you can't meaningfully enter the space with the right resources, the right information, and the right support, then it's going to be all for naught. So talk to us about why NFT-Black art was so important and really the mission and the focus of the entity.
Yeah. So when we first were looking at the space, we had already had a number of artists on our website that we were working with, and we were mainly selling prints and paintings. And so when we heard about NFTs, we asked them directly. We actually had a call where we said, hey, are you all interested in NFTs? And they said, yes, we are. It sounds really cool, but we don't really understand it. We don't really understand blockchain or Bitcoin or crypto wallets. And we don't necessarily have the time or the means right now to kind of figure it out. So our promise to them was, hey, we'll take the time to figure it out and we'll come back to you with a plan. And so as we were doing that, we were observing in the space and we were watching all of these different artists sell their work, from Beeple to Michael Johnson. What we noticed was that, one, there were very few Black artists that were selling. There were very few Black artists in the space, period. It was really hard to find Black artists or even Black collectors. So we knew that they were there, but it was hard to know where they were or how to find them. And, there were some groups that had begun kind of that effort, but I don't think they had figured out how to do it in a very kind of public way where it was really easy to find them. And then we also noticed, particularly with the Aku drop that happened in early 2021, the first big drop where they sold 1,400 NFTs for 1.4 million. What we saw was that this was the first time that a Black project had success that was on par with some of the bigger white projects. And the real big defining factor in this case was that it had a community, a group around it, Crypto for Black Economic Empowerment, that was able to really kind of get this off the ground. And so we're like, okay, we need to figure out how to make it so that many Black artists can have this kind of community. And so that's how we decided to launch Black NFT Art. Originally, at that time, the name that people were calling NFTs was crypto art. That was the name. And we originally tried to get Black crypto art, but all of those names were already taken. So we took Black NFT Art as the backup. And it ended up working out beautifully because now that's all people say is NFT art. No one says crypto art anymore. But yeah, our vision was really like, we want to make sure that when we onboard these Black artists that we had already been working with into the space, that they had a community around them and tools around them to help them be successful. And then it just kind of expanded from there into, well, how can we help Black artists in general and creatives and collectors, et cetera, thrive in the NFT space and have opportunities to network and build relationships and, you know, expand their horizons and meet new people, because that's a big part of how artists are able to grow in the space is networking.
When you make this value proposition to artists about why they should, at a bare minimum, be in the know, let alone get in, how do you explain that to artists right now?
It's interesting because I feel like I actually don't find myself explaining that often. It's interesting. I feel like usually when people come to me or ask questions, they're already convinced. They just don't know how.
Got it.
I do think that one of the important things to communicate or for people to understand is that it's not just about making a bunch of money. It's not just about dropping an NFT and cashing in. It's really about participating in like a big global cultural project that is allowing people to own their intellectual property, to create intellectual property, own it and monetize it in a way that is simplified, longer lasting, and easier to monetize than I think ever before. And so I think it's really about like having a whole new mindset about how you can actually create and build around your creativity.
I think it's really well said, because when you think about the art world traditionally, first of all, you know, we think of all the gatekeepers and the art houses and the galleries and the museums and the auction houses and the difficulty that many artists, specifically artists throughout the diaspora, have in participating meaningfully. And then also the one and done sale, to the extent that you can participate in what is considered to be the fine art world and whatever that means, and the access that is required in order to participate meaningfully. Obviously, that is a microcosm of the larger systemic issues that marginalize some of the people who are literally leading the culture when you look around the world, right? So now to have the opportunity to connect directly with community, as you said, that's vitally important in the crypto space. On the token project side, if you have a fungible token, let alone a non-fungible token, it really does open up a whole new world of possibilities, not just for that initial exposure and community and sale, but to also hopefully participate in downstream revenue and to really cultivate at a global level. And so that the way that you described it gets us back to that fundamental point you made earlier about empowerment.
The global aspect here is really important too, because I think NFTs are really, really powerful, particularly for people of color and communities outside of the United States and Europe. Why? Because if you are in Africa or the Caribbean or Latin America and you are selling your NFT for Ethereum, one Ethereum in Bogota, Colombia is the same as one Ethereum in the United States of America. So it's allowing people in these parts of the world where there's typically so many barriers to actually monetize their artwork even more than they otherwise would be able to, even more than someone in the United States. If someone in the United States sells their art for 1 Ethereum, yeah, sure, that can pay your rent for maybe 2 months. But if someone in Colombia is able to sell their art for 1 Ethereum, I mean, that might cover their rent for a whole 2 years. So it's just, I'm just really excited for, I think, the kind of ways in which we can level the playing field on a global scale.
Absolutely. When you think of global currency, right? That's the whole point when we think about this borderless technology that allows us to exchange value across borders. Borders become meaningless. And it really is a bottom up rather than a top down process when you think about empowerment. It also reminds me of the controversy about just what is art. And we'll get to that in a moment. Something you just said reminded me also to tell folks that when you are being paid, let's stick with Ethereum for a moment, although there are other networks that support non-fungible tokens and smart contracts and all of that, you're being paid, at least in the United States, in the equivalent of a capital asset. It's roughly analogous to actually receiving stock. I know this is at a very high level, so there are many differences between crypto. Let's focus on Ether and a stock, for example, ownership, et cetera, but it's taxed as a capital asset. Other capital assets of similarity would be stocks, bonds, and things like that. So not only are you being paid, but over time, God willing and the creek don't rise, that asset that you received as payment will grow over time as well.
Right.
That is definitely not something that happens with government issued currency. We call that fiat. I call it dirty fiat, but that's fine. Don't judge me. Because it has its place as, it has its place as well. But the idea of being paid in an asset that will also over time has the possibility, I'll speak in more generalities, of actually adding extraordinary value. Look at what happened to some of the folks we know who received ETH. They might have gotten 1 or 2 ETH back in the day and it was like, yay, oh, happy day. Now look what ETH is worth.
Yeah, I mean,
so that's a game changer.
When I first started helping artists sell NFTs in March, I believe Ethereum was around 2,000 to 2,500. And now Ethereum is hovering around 4,000 for the last few months.
So give that some serious thought too. Final point, both for artists and for collectors and investors. And collectors literally collect. Investors are flipping. I don't know. It's like flipping houses. I got no judgment, but it's a different enterprise.
Yeah.
It's actually real money. So sometimes people get into the game of 1 ETH, 2 ETH. It's like, you need to calculate and pay your taxes, but that's a story for another day. Anyway, I wanted to focus on this one point and then focus on the blueprint as you take artists through and talk up from, an educational point of view of the things that new artists in particular need to know about the space. This is really interesting discussion going on. It continues from the larger or the historical art world about what art is, this idea or this battle, this conversation around fine art versus contemporary or, God forbid, commercial art, and how that might play itself out in the NFT community. It leads me to think about the controversy around the onslaught of generative art projects, generally Bored Ape yacht clubs, punks, etc. And as an aside, Bored Apes has definitely received a lot of scrutiny because of the concerns about racial overtones of apes or racist origins. The whole project was created by pseudonymous folks, and so we don't really know intention, but it's definitely brewing up in controversy just at the beginning of the year. We're recording on the 3rd. There is thousands of people in various spaces on Twitter talking about this. One main room, then a offshoot of that, mostly BIPOC listeners and speakers, and some trolls. There doesn't really seem to be any agreement about how that is going to play itself out. But my larger point is the impact, you think, of generative art projects and even just explaining what it means to have the minting of dozens or hundreds or even thousands of variations of a project for ownership that usually sells for quite a low amount, but it may increase over time like Bored Apes and Punks did. Any thought about how that's going to all play itself out, particularly for Black artists?
It's interesting. I have yet to see a Black owned project be really successful. I think the only one that I know of is Meebits, which I believe is...
No, I don't know that one.
Yeah, I think they're either Black owned or one of the main devs on the project is Black, something to that extent. But the vast majority of generative projects by Black artists and collectives that I've seen have not done well. And, we've considered doing a generative project ourselves. We're actively actually trying to put one together. And once we actually sat down and said, okay, what would it take to really pull this off in a big way, right? And not just be like 99% of projects that fail, but really be in that top 1% where, Boss Beauties and World of Women and Bored Ape Yacht Club is. And what we realized is that it actually takes at least $200,000 or more. Some of these projects have budgets in the $500,000 range in order to actually pull this off successfully. And so I think one of the things that Black creators need to kind of really understand is if they want to do a generative project that's like a big, 6, 7, 8, 10,000 NFT project, you really need resources to pull it off. And if you don't have the resources, it's really not worth trying. And I wish I could communicate that out to more Black people, because a lot of them are dropping these projects and failing, and it's really sad to watch. I think that Black creators can do generative projects, but they need to be creative, and I think they can do them on a smaller level. So 100, 200, maybe 500 NFTs like Lana did, for example. Lana Daima, she found a lot of success with that. It was just 500 NFTs. So yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity when it comes to generative projects, but they're really hard to pull them off if you want to do a big one.
You love listening to podcasts, but have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? Maybe you want to build a brand, grow your business, or are looking for an excuse to talk about your favorite hobby. Whatever your reason for making a podcast, Buzzsprout is the place to start. Since 2009, Buzzsprout has helped over 300,000 people launch their own podcasts. Buzzsprout walks you step by step through the whole process and will give you powerful tools to start, grow, and monetize your podcast. Ready to get started? Click the link in the show notes to get our free step-by-step guide to starting your podcast today.
We hope you're enjoying this edition of Tech Intersect. Our conversation will continue in a moment, but first, a word on an exciting opportunity.
If you've tried to figure out crypto, DeFi, and NFTs on your own on YouTube University or Podcast College, and all you have to show for it are a lot of questions, but little, if any, forward progress, I invite you to visit advantageevans.com to get the answers you've been searching for about how to buy, store, and trade crypto and NFTs, and to access DeFi safely, legally, and confidently. Advantage Evans Academy offers everything from full-service VIP onboarding to prof-guided on-demand and cohort-based courses, as well as an engaging, informative, and supportive membership club, AE Explore Live, for as little as just $1 a day. This club is for you if you want to learn from well-respected crypto education experts like me, transform your relationship with money, generate wealth in the new digital cash economy, create digital ownership streams that lead to generational wealth, learn to vet, buy, store, trade, earn, and sell cryptocurrencies, engage in DeFi to lend and leverage your crypto, create, buy, and trade creative and collectible NFTs, and network with other crypto-curious enthusiasts in an inclusive environment. You'll gain all of that and more in a wonderful community of like-minded, lifelong learners ready to get in and to win. If that sounds like you, join us. Visit AdvantageEvans.com to get immediate access to the resources you need and deserve. That's AdvantageEvans.com. Let's go and let's grow.
And now, back to the conversation.
I'm so glad that you mentioned the Mona Lana, because that immediately came to mind as the only one. I said, as I think of projects other than the obvious ones, when you do a more limited edition, I think that as you said, that was 500. What did she do? Unique portraits of women. And also I love very much now the IP and tech lawyer and professor in me loves that their ERC 1155 tokens. And, she's just so savvy and sophisticated about that. She was really smart, right? And the paintings randomly generated on the blockchain still can have extraordinary value. But the final point about that, and to an earlier point you made, she had a really strong community before she ventured out.
Yes.
And I hear so many people talking about it as if it's again going to be a quick flip. There are no quick flips. Anybody you see at this point doing that has a decade or more of experience in some other area of investment that they then use that. It's not, you don't stumble into these things. It might look like it on crypto Twitter, but it's anything but. And it leads me to a couple of final topics that I want to talk with you about. And let's get specific. The artist comes to you, and now I know how they get to you. They have done all the hard work. They probably ask me why. And after I convince them, then they go to you and they say, how? So it was a selfish question. It was like, help me. So, all right. So we got to the how now. So talk to us about maybe the initial things that every Black artist should know and or do as they prepare to get into this space.
First thing that I think is important is to watch, listen, learn, and build relationships. I think a lot of people come into this space and they don't take the time to quote unquote pay their dues, which, it's weird to use that word, but I think to some extent it's important.
Come on, old soul.
You have,
you're an old soul.
you have people that are in the space that have been building, that have been working, that have been creating this environment for them to be successful. And I think it's important to come in and take the time to actually watch what they're doing and see what they've built and see how you can support, see how you can contribute, see how you can become an active community member in the community that exists, as opposed to saying, I've been in NFTs for 5 days. Now I'm going to go launch my own Discord and build my own community. You know what I mean? Like,
right. Real talk.
First of all,
Real talk.
First of all, you're going to create an uphill battle. Second of all, it's going to be really difficult for those of us that are already in the space in our own uphill battle to want to support you, because, it just takes a lot of time. We've spent so much time building and supporting people with what we already have. To try and help someone build something completely separate is not really the best use of our time. So we have people that come to us all the time and say, I want to do a generative project. Can you help me, launch this project? But they have 500 followers on Twitter and nobody knows who they are. And you know what I mean? And it's like, why don't you maybe try and get involved with the projects that are already existing, kind of support, get engaged, be involved. And then once you've gotten to a place where you really have a community of people around you that knows you and supports you, then launch your own thing. So I think some people come into this space and they're too quick to try and do their own thing or compete with folks that are already in the space. When it comes to community building in particular, I think when it comes to developing your art, I think it's really important for people to be intentional with their artwork and make sure that their art is their best work. There's a lot of competition. And I think people think that, oh, it's NFTs, everybody's making money, so I can drop low quality work. And I think that's really not the best mindset. And once you drop that work, it's on the blockchain forever.
It's on there. That's right.
Yeah, I think it's really important to be like, is this work my best work? Is this work that I feel really proud of? I've seen a lot of artists, they come into the space, they drop their work, they're not selling, and then they start to kind of rant and complain on social media about how they feel ignored
Right.
and they don't feel like people. And I'm like, well, but is your art at the level where it should be to be able to compete with all of these other artists that are doing really well? I think just being really honest with yourself about what you're putting out there and whether or not what you're putting out is really your best work, is really work that people are going to be excited about and are going to want to spend hundreds or thousands of dollars on. I think another thing is a lot of artists come into the space with really high price points. They come in,
Yes.
their reserve price is zero point 0.5 ETH, or even 0.5 isn't even that bad. They come in and their reserve price is 2 ETH, but they've never sold
Right.
an NFT before. And I know that in your mind, your art is worth 2 ETH, and it probably is worth 2 ETH, but you still have to go through the process of building up your audience and building up your collector base. And typically,
Right.
the way that people do that is by starting with low price points and allowing people who may love your art but don't have a lot of money to buy it. And as you
Hmm.
build that base of supporters that are buying your art, then eventually you'll start to be able to tap into those people who actually have more capital to spend. And a lot of those people who have more capital to spend are going to want to see that you
Right.
actually have support before they come out and drop $8,000 on your art, right? So
Right.
don't look at it as like I'm underselling my art. Look at it as like I'm
Right.
building my brand. And usually when you're first starting out, you have to do stuff for free or for a low price. It's just the
Right.
name of the game.
If you're an engineer, you're a scientist, you love Formula One, you love cycling, you love learning about how new technologies are changing the world around us, then I thought you may want to listen into my new podcast, the Neil Ashton Podcast. We talk to leading engineers and scientists from around the world, hear about their life stories, hear about new technologies, and hopefully educate you and give you a better sense of how key things like machine learning, artificial intelligence, supercomputing are changing the world around us. If that sounds like it's something you might like, you should come and have a listen.
So many really good points. So many really. I was taking a couple of notes because the word competition has come up a lot. And when I think about it, I think of it more as comparison and the fact that there's this embarrassment of riches. There's so many talented people who have gone through the hard knocks of it and building. Anytime you're building a base or a company or you want to sell a house, some of the language is just reminding me of, what do I list my house at? Yes, my house is
Mhm.
worth $2 million, but I would rather list it to move. So I'm not still paying all the bills on this while I'm waiting for that one person who's going to recognize the realness of my home. And maybe I'll enter a bidding war. And
Mhm.
the idea of setting an auction price, because also it'll play out with if you have a really great auction, you have your reserve price. And once that trips, either you're doing a direct sale, but auctions have been quite successful. I've seen a lot of people who probably have surprised themselves and others. And to your point about what collectors are looking for, to know that if they resell that it has a value that is going to hold over time. So
Mhm.
I love all of that. I think that is really, really great advice. And I'm excited about the future. Any predictions about 2022 and the future of NFT art?
You know, okay, so two things. One, I think we're going to see a lot more brands and corporations, large corporations, start flooding into the space, just like we're seeing lots of artists flooding into the space. I think 2022 is going to be the year that every brand, big and small, from
Mm-hmm.
Kentucky Fried Chicken to your local, dentist office, is going to be trying to create NFTs. I think it's going to be interesting to see how corporate entities try and find their place in the NFT space
Right.
and what kind of standards artists and collectors set for what is and isn't acceptable. I think we're also going to see a lot more collectors coming into the space. And
Mm-hmm.
I think we're going to see a lot more initiatives to onboard collectors into NFTs because the space doesn't really work without them, and we definitely need more. But I also, from my understanding, if you look at kind of the cycle of the crypto market and the rise and fall of prices in Bitcoin and Ethereum, it seems as though 2022, we are on schedule for a major reset, which seems to happen every 4 years.
Right.
So I think it's going to be interesting to see if 2022 breaks that cycle, breaks that 4-year cycle, or if it doesn't break that cycle and a major kind of crash or dip in the market does happen, and how that affects the people that are in the space, including companies like mine that are startups. We don't have a ton of capital or savings to be able to survive some sort of major dip. And so it's something that I've been thinking about. And I'm sure there's a lot of artists as well who maybe have quit their jobs or, you know what I mean, decided to come into NFTs full time. And I think it'll be interesting to see how people cope with a major dip if it happens.
It's always a cautionary tale and also a reminder to be nimble and to pivot and to anchor yourself not in FOMO, the fear of missing out on some opportunity, but really build. This is what happens in bear markets where everybody leaves and the VCs are no longer interested in the interim. Folks who are really invested in and committed to an actual project and really fulfilling their roadmap, they go back to work. They don't, and that I talk about it all the time in Advantage Evans Academy. We're not chasing prices. We are building for a future. We're laying a proper foundation because the generational wealth of tomorrow begins today, and it begins with you. And a pure artist is in it for the art, but I don't believe in starving artistry. You might know me in my other capacity as lawyer by day, poet by night back in the day, spitting a few verses. I got bars before we called it bars. So that's
we
that
need
on
to
that.
make an NFT together, Tanya.
Let's go. Look, listen. That's our pivot. That's our pivot.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to have my people call your people. Don't play with me. Yeah, we're going to be about building and encouraging people to really focus on the art and what do you want to leave as your legacy? And then let's figure out what it means at the intersection of technology and economic empowerment to really advance culture and art forward in a meaningful way. And you are a trailblazer in that, right? You're my friend. You're my little sister. You are a builder and a trailblazer in this space. So it is an absolute pleasure to work with you and to grow with you. And I'm looking forward to, I'm optimistic too. I'm optimistic. Leave the good folks with some final comments, including how they can learn more about you and your work. And I will drop all of that in the show notes as well, but I want them to hear it from you.
Yeah, absolutely. So the best way to get in contact with us is through our website, www.umbadaima.com. That's umbadaima.com. You can also find us at blacknftart.co. We have our emails listed, on our site, so you can email us. Twitter and Instagram DMs are not the best if you want to get through to us quickly.
Please, they're not. You all stop it. Our DMs are cluttered. We can't find anything. Please, but go ahead. I'm sorry. It's not about me.
I'll also say, for Umba Daima, we have gone through a lot of evolutions and a lot of pivots. You've seen us pivot about 50 times. That's one thing I am very good at. And that has been because we have been trying to figure out, how do we stay aligned with our mission of equity, justice on a global scale for people of color, for disadvantaged communities, et cetera? How do we stay aligned with that vision while also monetizing and being able to benefit ourselves from the space? We've seen a number of artists that we've worked with go on to earn, 6 figures in sales in this space, but we don't have any ownership in any of what we helped them create. We don't get any royalties. We don't have any credits, producer credits or anything like that, even though we've directly helped some artists with developing the concepts for their art or making their art better than what they were originally planning to put out there or helping them market. And so myself and my co-founder Omar, we have been dying to be creative for a long time. We both have creative backgrounds. And we realized that the best thing for us to do is actually just become creators ourselves. And so the vision for 2022 is for Umba Daima to really kind of rebrand and emerge as a really powerful creator in the NFT space, creator of IP, creator of art, and to have a studio that is able to facilitate really dope collaborations between artists of different disciplines. So whether that's musicians or whether that's filmmakers, whether that's graphic artists, visual artists, etc., to be able to produce these really beautiful collaborations that result in really beautiful and meaningful artwork that has depth.
Yes.
And that tells stories and that inspires and touches people. And we actually think that that's really a great way for us to still onboard people. We can still take people who've never minted before and have them mint through a collaboration. Still take artists that need help with promotion or marketing and promote them through a project that we've collaborated on and that we co-own. So I'm really excited for that. And that's what makes me really optimistic, because it's not about necessarily making a bunch of money. I know that that will happen in the process, and that's great, but I'm really excited for us to have impact on a bigger level and for us to be peers with, all of these people that we've been supporting and helping.
I'm really excited about that. And I love a good pivot. And I've got some ideas. I'm going to have my people call your people. Our people have a lot to talk about.
Let's do it.
Let's go. Iris, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for responding to the 11th hour call. I love spending this time with you for my first episode of 2022, and only only 3 episodes until the 100th. I can't even believe it. I had to carry the 2 with the old math, but this is legit. I'm about to be 100 years old. What do you think about that? In my not so spare time. You know me.
Yeah, I know you're busy. So that's kudos to you for that consistency, because that's really what it takes to get to that number, is consistency.
Thank you so much, Iris, for dropping some serious gems on the blueprint for success in the NFT space, the importance of staying nimble, prepared to pivot, and connected to community. And for explaining why bringing your best and not succumbing to FOMO or the latest PFP or generative art shiny object will help you avoid the short-term game and focus on long-term gain. The stuff that inclusion and empowerment and generational wealth are made of. It's time to get inspired, informed, connected, and in the flow of the future of creativity. Because the future is now, and it begins with you. Now, before we sign off, please take a moment to like, comment, and share this episode and this podcast with your networks. Follow me on social medias and let me know what topics you'd like to hear more of and who you want to hear from. All right, that's all for this episode. Until next time, continue to shine.
Stay in touch with host Tanya Evans via your favorite social media. On Twitter at Tech Intersect. And on Instagram via the handle Tech Intersect. This podcast has been produced by Stephanie Renee for Soul Sanctuary Incorporated.